Hey, what's going on? Today we're talking about the Polyend Play Plus and the Polyend Synth. I think that both of these devices complement each other really well, and I've wanted to get these two talking to each other, and I think that I found the best setup for my workflow, and I just want to share it with you, show you how I have it set up. Before I get into showing you exactly how I have this set up, I just want to talk about why I'm doing this way. If you're familiar with the Play Plus, this is one of the ways that you would get your notes into the sequencer. You can also hold this down here, and then this will bring up a piano roll. I'm not a piano roll person, and this keybed mode, it just doesn't really work for me. And I love the pads on the synth. I wanted to be able to use this grid to get notes in here because whenever I'm playing another synth or I have a MIDI controller connected to a DAW, I use a grid because I'm sort of familiar with a grid. I know my way around. I know chord shapes and that sort of thing. That's the primary way that I enter in notes. Once you get accustomed to the layout of this device and how it works, it's really snappy and it's just a lot of fun to design patches on this device here. Something that the synth has that the Polyend Play doesn't have is an ARP and a sequencer. So you can use the Polyend Play to sequence your sequences over here. And then lastly, for effects, over here you have a mod effect, which you do not have on the Play Plus. And then you also have delay and then reverb. And there's delay and reverb over here as well. You can set a different delay and reverb over here and then have something altogether different going over here to just have a little bit more variety for a sound palette. The current setup that I'm using requires Ableton. However, I did try to get this set up with just these two devices and I just couldn't make it happen. I had MIDI out running into the MIDI in here and then MIDI out going into the MIDI in here. And I was running into a bunch of MIDI feedback and CC feedback and doubling of notes and all kinds of weird stuff. And I just don't think that it was designed in the way that I was trying to use it. I'm gonna go into full detail and show you how I have everything configured between Ableton, the synth, and Play Plus. But first, I just wanna show you how I am getting notes from this controller here into this sequencer. On the Polyend Synth, you have 3 different synth engines that are available to you. I've disabled the purple synth, the third synth, so that I can just use this as a MIDI controller to put notes into the sequencer here. If you take a look for synth 1 and 2, I have MIDI input coming into the jack here. The synth that I want to use as my MIDI controller, I have it going USB out on channel 3. And that is going into Ableton. That's coming back into the Play Plus. I'm able to put those notes into this sequencer. And then from the sequencer, I can send MIDI data out here into synth 1 and synth 2. So essentially, I'm using this pad to put notes into this sequencer so that I can control these two synths. Let me show you how this works. Let's go ahead and go over here, set up a very simple kick pattern. I'm gonna go to synth, so I'm gonna go ahead and hold down Shift and then go to MIDI. The sample button will allow you to choose the target for where the notes are gonna go out to. We're gonna go over here to 2, right? I'll go ahead and arm these, and I've made each of these 2 bars long. I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. I'll turn on live record, and then I'll wait for this to get back to the beginning here. For me, that's much more efficient than using the keyboard that's here or trying to use the piano roll. Maybe we could just go a little bit further. Again, sample, I'm gonna go to 4, which is the second synth engine on the Polyend Synth. I'm gonna arm these last 2 here, and I have them pointed at the synth engine that's built in here. If you hold down Shift and then you go back to audio, you can then also play into the samples that are on here, which is really, really cool. For me, this is the ideal setup. It's really, really good. If the laptop goes to sleep, I'm able to just continue working over here. I can just let this run, get lost in these 2 small screens here, and just be immersed in these devices. Let me show you how I have this whole thing configured. Here's what we have going on, and I'll just kind of work my way this way. So the synth is receiving clock from the Play Plus, and it's also got its transport from the Play Plus. If we go here into the synths menu, it is only receiving MIDI from here on channel 2 and channel 4 through this MIDI jack. And then it is only sending MIDI data out via USB. So that's this synth here. On the play, the clock is coming from Ableton via USB. Transport coming from Ableton via USB. The clock out is going here, right? So that the sequencers, the ARPs, the LFOs all can follow this clock, which is following the clock of Ableton. Transport out is going here. MIDI notes in are coming from USB, or it's coming from Ableton. And then I just set the notes channel to Omni. That's it for this device. Let's pop over to Ableton real quick. Starting out over here on the computer, I have an aggregate device set up with my audio interface and Play Plus, because Play sends audio over USB. You get access to all of these 16 channels individually, stereo, which is really, really great. The 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs on my interface, loop back on my interface, and then these are all of the channels that are coming in from the Play Plus. And I just have my mini fuse set as the main clock source. If you need some more instructions on how to set up an aggregate device, I have that explained in a video here. Take a look at that. Over in Ableton, if we open up preferences, I have my input device as the aggregate that I set up. If we look at our input config settings here, you can see all of the channels from the Play Plus. If we go over to MIDI here, I've just got a couple of little things going on. On the input ports, I have the synth track is on, and then I also enabled MPE. I don't know that you necessarily need to do that, but I found that whenever I was pushing down on the pads, I was getting some like sticky notes, and whenever I enabled MPE over here, that went away. So I don't know, your mileage may vary, but for me, that resolved that issue. On the output ports, I have track going out to the Play Plus, and I also have sync, or the clock source, going out to the Play Plus. So that's sort of all of the menu settings for the Play Plus, synth, and Ableton. Here are the tracks that I have set up in Ableton, and I'm gonna start with the synth, and then I'll go over to the Play Plus. For the synth, I have audio input coming in on channel 1 on my audio interface. I only have 2 channels available for me. So this works perfect because I only have 2 synth engines that I'm gonna be sending out. I hard pan my first synth engine all the way to the left, and I hard pan the second synth engine all the way to the right. And what this has allowed me to do is run in single mono channels for each of the individual synths. Audio is coming from synth 1, and I've color coordinated this so that I don't get lost or confused. Synth number 2 is coming in here, right? And then I just set the monitor to in so that anytime that this is sending anything, I'm gonna hear it. Probably most importantly here is the Polyend Synth MIDI controller. It's purple because this is purple. If we click on this, I have an external instrument device set up here, and I'm sending MIDI to the play. The audio from, I have this disabled because I just want to use this as a way to be able to route this controller into here. I don't want to hear that here because I have all of the input channels for the play set up individually. I've just named these Ableton tracks with what I have on each of these individual tracks here so that I don't get lost. If you take a look, I have something here called Master Play. It's going to be all of the sample tracks. It's going to be any of the synths that are internal on the Play Plus. It's also going to capture the reverb send, the delay, as well as the sound of the limiter, the sound, right, so the EQ, and the saturation settings as well. But I have it disabled because I really just want the individual stuff, and I like to just have it as a reference so that it's there. I've got my 8 different tracks. I've got a purple track, and that is this purple track down here, which is the internal synth here, the VAP synth here. And then I also have these 2 gray tracks over here, which are the output of both of these sends. Anything that I put into the reverb send or the delay send is going to end up in either of these 2 tracks. And it's really kind of cool to have an isolated track for just your sends because you can do a lot of interesting things with it post. It may be good to just sort of fold in or close your sample tracks and just sort of hide that, at least while you're just kind of jamming here. And then when you go onto the stage where you want to start mixing or doing some other things, then you can obviously go back in there. That's the whole setup. Let's go back to my track that I was making just to show you all of the individual tracks. Take a look here. And we can go through these, right? Play Plus synth here. Here are the sends. And what I was talking about, right, that you can sort of do some interesting things with these. There's a lot to explore there. Here is the reverb send. We go over to the Polyend Synth. But hopefully it sort of shows you what you're able to do with this setup. Lastly, let's go ahead and get out of session view, arm all of these tracks. So now we're in this secondary mode where you can sort of push this stuff off to the side and then you can start doing your sound design, right? Okay, that's it for now. I hope that you found that helpful. It took me a little while to figure out how to get these two devices to speak together. There may be a better way to do this while using Ableton so that you can get all the individual tracks. I don't know how to do that. So if you have a better way, or if you know a better way, then please let me know. Listen, I have a Patreon, and I would be delighted if you would come on over there, come hang out, because we have a Discord server and we just talk about gear and track reviews and that sort of thing. And then also I upload stems from the jams in these videos here. So if that's something that you're interested in, then maybe consider popping over to Patreon. And if you don't like Patreon, that's cool. I've got a bunch of music on Bandcamp, so maybe you could consider supporting me over there. And if you don't like Bandcamp, that's cool too. Most importantly, I just hope that you have a wonderful day. Okay. Oh boy.